Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. Let's get started on our adventure here. Hello, good morning.
Morning. Let me see what's going on here. All right. Missing light, so forth. Right back. Almost there.
Bright and shining and new.
Yeah, if you say so. All right, man. I got 3 stories. Let me make sure they're loaded. Actually, I got 4.
We've got a bonus story, huh?
I got 2 short stories, so I'll make them one. We'll call it, what's it, Wednesday?
Yes. Wednesday.
Let's call it Weird Wednesday.
Okay.
Because they're odd stories. All right. Ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Right on, let's go.
Today on Before Coffee. EU accused of staggering neglect after just 271 Afghans resettled across the bloc.
North Korea fails on attempt to launch its first spy satellite.
Macron to call for European strategic awakening after Ukraine invasion.
UAE heading to asteroid belt as it announces new space mission.
British paddleboarder killed by lightning strike was told to get out of the water.
And in Weird Wednesday stories, we have a race down a hill, and we have an Indian official draining a reservoir. Today, the last day of May 31st, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
All right, let's get into our first story today. Just 271 Afghans were resettled in the EU in 2022. 0.1% of the 270,000 identified in need of permanent protection. Leading charity, the International Rescue Committee, accused EU leaders of staggering neglect of Afghan refugees, with many remaining trapped in prison-like conditions on Greek islands. In a damning report, the International Rescue Committee claims EU member states have consistently failed to deliver a legal resettlement promise, leaving many Afghans who did not reach the EU borders vulnerable all over again. It claims that not a single person has arrived under a scheme established in Germany in 2021 to resettle up to 1,000 Afghans a month, while Italy has taken just half the refugees it promised. Between 2021 and 2022, about 41,500 Afghans at risk were admitted to the EU, many through ad hoc emergency evacuations in August of 2021. Some countries have not taken any Afghans at all since Kabul fell, and the country was taken over by the Taliban, according to its reports. 2 years on, Afghans still lack pathways safely into the EU. The authors of the report found that more than 90% of Afghans supported by the IRC's mental health teams in Lesbos and Athens experienced symptoms of anxiety. 80% experienced depression in the year of March 2023. David Miliband, head of International Rescue Committee, said this report highlights staggering neglect of Afghans by the member states of the European Union, which puts them at risk at every step of their journeys in search of protection. He said the welcome EU member states showed to more than 8 million people fleeing Ukraine showed its capacity to deliver. There is simply no excuse for treating Afghans and refugees forced from their homes elsewhere any differently. But of course there are reasons, and it's racism. Those people have melanin! Ah!
They're goat herders.
They might like freaking a different religion. I'm scared. The IRC report focused on the lack of the safe paths from refugees, but do not appear to reflect the wider efforts made in countries like Germany to support Afghans. In March, the German official of national statistics, the Status, announced that 286,000 Afghan nationals arrived and were registered in the country in 2022. However, it has faced local criticism that has acted too slow on its promises. One refugee interviewed for the IRC report said she had high hopes for resettlement in Germany, but the process, which was stressful, took 2.5 years. Waiting for an answer was a very difficult and anxious time for me, as I was without my 2 children in this foreign country whose culture I did not know. I had no choice but to wait and hope that one day I would be able to offer my children a safe life here. The IRC called on EU member states to scale up protection pathways and aims to resettle 42,500 Afghan refugees over the coming 5 years at a minimum. The IRC suggests the UK, which is under constant criticism for failing to deliver on resettlement schemes, is doing better than many EU states. How ironic, since they're so incredibly anti-refugee right now. British government data updated last week showed indefinite leave to remain has been given to just under 13,000 Afghans under 2 UK resettlement and relocation programs. This was a story from Lissa O'Carroll, the Brussels correspondent at The Guardian.
So who's leading the way? Is it UK?
No, Germany is definitely leading the way.
Germany. Okay.
But the UK isn't. It's because this is The Guardian, right? It's a UK-based paper.
Uh-huh.
They're like, we're not doing bad either, okay? The other countries are. Don't look at us.
Yeah. We're doing better than Belgium, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on. And I guess it's my story.
Yep.
North Korea fails on its attempt to launch its first satellite. This is from AP story from, we'll give the author later. North Korea's attempt to put the country's first spy satellite into space failed Wednesday in a setback to leader Kim Jong-un's push to boost his military capabilities as tensions in the United States and South Korea rise. After its unusually quick admission to failure, North Korea vowed to conduct a second launch after learning what went wrong with its rocket liftoff. It suggests Kim remains determined to expand its weapons arsenal to apply more pressure in Washington and Seoul while diplomacy is stalled. The satellite launched by North Korea is a violation of UN Security Council resolutions that ban the country from conducting any launch based on ballistic technology. Observers say North Korea's previous satellite launches help improve its long-range missile technology, although the latest launch likely was more focused on deploying a spy satellite. North Korea has already shown it may have the ability to strike all of the U.S. mainland after years of intercontinental ballistic missile tests. Yeah, striking the continent. Not accurately, though, but they'll strike a continent.
And they'll hit somebody, and it probably
they'll
will
hit
be somebody who
something
deserves
that's
it.
Perhaps a desert somewhere. I don't know. A newly developed Coloma 1 rocket, Kolima 1 rocket, which was carrying the Malyaeng 1 satellite, was launched at 6:31 a.m. at the North's Sohae satellite launching ground in the northwest. The rocket crashed off the Korean peninsula's western coast after it lost thrust following the separation of its first and second stages, the North's official Korean Central Agency said. It said the country's space agency will investigate defects revealed in the launch, take urgent measures to overcome them, and conduct the second launch as soon as possible through various part tests. Wednesday's launch prompted brief evacuation alerts in South Korea and Japan. Seoul's military said it boosted military readiness and coordination with the United States and Japan, said it prepared to respond to any emergency. South Korea's military said the rocket had an abnormal flight before it fell in the waters. Japan's chief cabinet secretary, Hirokazu Matsuno, told reporters that no object was believed to have reached space. Adam Hodge, the spokesperson of the U.S. National Security Council, said in a statement that Washington strongly condemns the North Korea's launch because it was banned ballistic missile technology, raised tensions, and risked destabilizing security in the region and beyond. Hodge said the United States urges North Korea to return to talks and cease its provocative actions. He said the U.S. will take all necessary measures to ensure the security of American homeland and defense of South Korea and Japan. The UN imposed economic sanctions on North Korea over its previous satellite and ballistic missile launches, but China and Russia, permanent Security Council members, now locked in confrontation with the U.S., have blocked attempts to toughen sanctions over Pyongyang's recent test. Matsuno said North Korea repeated missile launches pose serious threats to the peace and safety of Japan, the region, and the international community. Japanese Defense Minister Yatsuko Hamada said Japan plans to keep the missile defense system deployed to Japanese southern islands when the southwestern waters in place until June 11th, which is the end of North Korea's stated launch window. We've made preparations to respond to any possible emergency, Hamada said. The South's capital city of Seoul issued alerts over public speakers and cell phone text message telling residents to prepare for evacuation after the launch was detected. Japan activated a missile warning system in Okinawa Prefecture in southwestern Japan in the rocket's suspected path. Please evacuate into buildings or underground, the alert said. Both alerts in Okinawa and Seoul were later lifted. Seoul's defense ministry later released photos of white metal cylinder described as suspected rocket part. The South Korean military earlier said it was salvaging an object presumed to be a part of the crashed North Korean rocket in waters 200 miles west of southwestern island of Gyeonggi. Okay, there's a lot more to this story. In other words, they have not figured out rocket technology or lift to get into space, but eventually they will. And their spy satellite camera technology is kind of low tech, so even the resolution is not going to be that great. So even their spy satellite is going to be looking at stuff like, "Wow, that's really far away. I wonder what it is." Your story.
Hopefully nothing bad will come from it, but we never know because it is North Korea. And they are very strong in wanting to take back South Korea, so we'll see what happens.
That's all I got going, man.
In French news, or I guess European diplomatic news, Emmanuel Macron is to make a diplomatic push to reassure Central and Eastern European countries that France understands that the continent's security environment has been permanently changed by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Macron has been viewed with suspicion across Eastern Europe, especially in Poland, as someone who sees Russia as ultimately part of Europe's security architecture and wants to use the war in Ukraine to boost European defense autonomy in a way that loosens Europe's security ties to the US. In a speech to a security forum in the Slovakian capital Bratislava on Wednesday, Macron will call for a strategic awakening and highlight the work France has done to protect NATO's eastern flank, including posting 1,250 French troops in Romania and 300 in Estonia. He will also stress the French role in unlocking the supply of battle tanks to Ukraine. At a meeting the following day in Moldova, he has largely engineered with fellow European leaders from inside and outside the EU, including Britain's Rishi Sunak. He will stress France's commitment to Ukraine's victory and say he will not tolerate a frozen conflict. An LC official said, "What is striking is that it's not the first. This is the third war that Russia has been waging in 15 years, with Georgia in 2008, Ukraine in 2014, and Ukraine again in 2022. The officials accused Russia of laying down its abusive demands in the draft treaties of late 2021, where Russia proposed nothing short of the full decoupling of the European-American security, the neutralization of Ukraine, and the organizing the vulnerability of the state neighboring Russia, all claims which cannot be accepted." The LC pointed out that Macron had already sanctioned an increase of more than a third in France's planned defense spending for 2024 to 2030. Compared with 2019 and 2025, Macron sees the increase as part of a sea change in the defense spending underway, with no prospect of an end to the new Cold War anytime soon. The president will argue that Europe, backed by EU funding, needs to do more to support its own armament production capacity and explore defense partnerships between member states. Macron is expected to warn of a deep and steady erosion of European strategic stability due to Russia's successive withdrawals from nuclear arms control treaties, as well as the recent stationing of Russian tactical nuclear weapons. As part of the response, France and Germany will host a military conference on June 19th, focused on German proposal for European Sky Shield initiative. France will contend that Europe and NATO need not just stronger air defense, but a new deep precision strike capability. The proposal for developing this long-range capability for NATO was recently discussed at a Franco-British summit in Paris in March. French sources said this shows how Macron does not insist that stronger European defense capabilities are solely structured around the EU. The meeting in Moldova of the new European Political Community, EPC, a Macron brainchild, will gather 47 European leaders from inside and outside the EU, including Turkey. It will be the second such meeting of this fledgling group. The LC predicted that the family photo of so many European leaders showing their solidarity with two EU accession applicants, Ukraine and Moldova, would send a clear message to Russia. The re-elected Turkish President Erdogan is expected to attend the summit, where he will be pressed to clarify his terms for lifting his veto on Sweden's membership of NATO. France would like Sweden to be able to join NATO at an organization's summit in July. The summit will also consider the next stage of Ukraine's application to join NATO, something France does not favor for some time. Okay, so maybe they'll make a trade. You let Sweden join, we'll let Ukraine join. Okay. The EPC, due to meet twice a year, is still in infancy and will focus on European security, connectivity, energy, and cyber defense. The next EPC will be hosted by Spain later this year, and another next year by the UK. Alright, more organizations that can deliberate for 16 months and do nothing. Yay! I'm sure they'll do something someday. We'll see what happens with the EPC and France. If freaking Macron will even have a position later, because, France has completely lost all trust in him, so.
Come on now. Come on, everybody. Let's all get together. Let's stop war.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
All right, on. From Al Jazeera. I don't have the author's name, but maybe he didn't put it. That's always possible. UAE heading to asteroid belt as it announces new space mission. The spacecraft will travel to an asteroid called Justitia. Better get used to that name. That could give insight into the genesis of the life on Earth. The United Arab Emirates is planning to send a spaceship to explore the solar system's main asteroid belt in order to unearth clues about the origins of life on Earth. The country unveiled plans for the Emirates mission to the asteroid belt on Monday, hoping to launch the spacecraft once it's built in 2028 to study 7 asteroids. The 13-year project will take 6 years of development, 7 years of exploration, spanning more than 5 billion kilometers, about 3 billion miles, and surpassing Mars, according to Dubai's ruler Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. Let's shorten that somehow. The spacecraft is named MBR after the leader, Mohammed bin Rashid. Okay, there you go. The remarkable journey will be 10 times the distance covered by the Hope probe, said Al Maktoum. Al Maktoum, I got his name right, referring to the UAE mission to Mars in February 2021. The Hope probe gave the UAE the honor of being the first Arab country and second country ever to successfully enter Mars orbit. The latest spacecraft, this successful, will travel at a speed of 33,000 kilometers per hour, reaching 6 asteroids and terminating at a 7th one in 2034 called Justitia, which could give more insight into the genesis of life on Earth. This could happen through the study of the origins of organic compounds like water, which have been found in some asteroids. Justitia in particular is believed to have a number of organic substances on its surface. It is one of the 2 reddest objects in the asteroid belt, and scientists don't really understand why it's so red, said Hur al-Mazmi, a science teacher at the UAE Space Agency referring to Justitia. There are theories about it being originally from the Kuiper Belt, in which there's much more red objects there. So that's one thing that we can study because it has the potential to be water rich as well. The Explorer will be developed by private UAE startup companies and could be the start of the country's desire to extract resources from asteroids, and even its ambitious goal of building a colony on Mars by 2117. The Gulf region has been innovating in the sector in recent years. Well, that's obvious. That's kind of a throwaway sentence. The last week, 2 Saudi astronauts traveled to the International Space Station for the first time. This came on the heels of UAE astronaut Sultan Al Nayati becoming the first Arab to undertake a spacewalk last month. In 2019, Hazza Al-Mansouri from the UAE became the first Arab to reach the International Space Station. And that is our story about the UAE and their space exploration. Instead of building them tiny islands,
the planet.
They've stopped building them islands out there in the freaking water that nobody wants to live on, and now they're going to space. Right on.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens with that.
Uh-huh.
In tragic tourist death news, we've got an article by Helena Smith in Athens about a British paddleboarder who died getting struck by lightning. Scott Seddon's girlfriend repeatedly shouted, "Come out," when it became clear that 26-year-old from Liverpool was struggling in the waters off Agathi Beach. The woman, who has not been named, was on land filming Seddon, an accomplished sportsman, with her mobile phone as the tragedy unfolded. "I suddenly heard her crying for help," said Wander Machado, a Brazilian footballer, who rushed into the sea to pull the Briton from the water. "I administered first aid. At some point I could see him turning blue. He was trying to breathe," he told Greece's Mega TV. "I thought he would come too. The girl was saying his name. She was saying, 'I love you, and then suddenly his eyes closed." The 47-year-old said he instantly realized how crucial every second was when he found Seldon face down in the water. Emergency services had attempted to resuscitate him. Seddon's parents own a villa close to Agathi Beach, and local media reported that he was a popular figure in the area and respected for his spoken Greek. Rhodes Coast Guard officials had opened an inquiry taking testimony from beachgoers who witnessed the tragedy. The video footage of the accident captured by Seddon's distraught partner will, they say, be crucial to the investigation. Forensic scientists at the island's general hospital said an autopsy will be conducted to determine the cause of death. It's not like there was a murder, right? Oh, who killed him? The lightning did. I get the autopsy to be like what actually initially caused death, like asphyxiation or, his heart exploded. I don't know. But it's really weird that they need the video footage of the accident. Are we sure it was a lightning strike? Yeah, but okay, here's the video. Kind of weird. I'm just worried because a lot of that kind of stuff ends up on dark web, you want to see people die? And I'm like, no, I don't want to see that.
The beheading videos get 1 million views right away.
On the dark web, yeah. On Tuesday, questions were being asked as to why public warning had not been issued when the storm in the area had been forecast hours earlier. Rhodes has been hit by bad weather for several days, with downpours so heavy that severe damage, including leaky roofs, was reported at the departure hall of the island's international airport, according to local news outlets. Machado said prior to the tragedy, he could see lightning bolts around the Britain surfboard in the belting rain. "I turned to a friend," he said, recalling the moment he saw the tourist in the area, and said, "We should tell him to get out." Yeah, the thing about lightning is that you can tell it's about to come because all the hair in your body will start lifting and rising up. So if you're ever in the middle of the sea on a boat or just surfboarding or paddleboarding and that happens to you, I don't freaking make for cover, run, I don't know, go underwater. I have no idea. Just don't
act like
do
Curly
nothing.
from the Three Stooges.
Act. Just act. Do something. Don't just stand there going, "Oh wow, this is so cool." I saw that on a video actually. A bunch of tourists on a boat going, "Whoa, where hairs are standing?" Like their actual hair, like their short hair was standing straight up, and they're like, "Whoa, that's so crazy. Why is that happening?" And then everyone in the comments is going, all those people died. What are they doing filming? Yeah.
A boat on a lake is the highest profile thing on a flat surface. So
Yeah, no,
you're gonna get
it's only
struck.
the closest thing to the ground, that's for sure.
Yeah. And
Rest in
lightning
peace, the British paddleboarder.
Lightning really can't strike water, so it disperses, right? Hey, today in Weird Wednesday news, we have a section I just clicked on in oddities in AP, so we're going to use their stories, and there's a couple of interesting stories. Right on, let's get to it. Indian officials suspended. Okay. Okay. Stop doing that to me. Okay. Indian officials suspended after he drains a reservoir to retrieve phone he dropped while taking selfie. In New Delhi, this is a government official in India has been suspended from his job after he ordered a water reservoir to be drained so he could retrieve his smartphone, which he had dropped while taking a selfie. Food Inspector Rajesh Vishwas dropped his Samsung smartphone in Karkata Dam in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh last week, the Times of India newspaper reported. Vishwas was first asked local divers to jump in the reservoir to find his device, claiming it contained sensitive government data. But after the initial efforts to retrieve his smartphone failed, he asked for the reservoir to be emptied using diesel pumps. Over the next 3 days, more than 2 million liters of water were pumped out from the reservoir, which is enough to irrigate at least 1,500 acres of land during India's scorching summer, local media reported. In the videos that went viral on social media, Vishwas is seen sitting under a red umbrella as diesel pumps run to drain water from the reservoir. Vishwas told local media the water reservoir was unusable for irrigation and that he received permission from the senior official to drain it. Unusable for irrigation. Nothing, but it's at no value for anyone else. I got it. The smartphone was eventually retrieved, but wouldn't even start because it was waterlogged. Authorities later suspended Vishwas after he was widely criticized for wasting water resources. India is one of the most water-stressed countries, and extreme temperatures that led to severe water scarcity, causing crop issues, forest fires, and cuts to power. So, some selfish douche nozzle decided his phone was worth saving, and wasting 1,500. Wait, how many? It was a lot of water. He drained a reservoir. And in other weird news, Rolling Thunder contestants chase cheese wheel down a hill in chaotic UK race. In London, the big cheese of extreme UK sport events is back. Hundreds of spectators gathered Monday to watch dozens of racers chase a 7-pound, 3-kilogram, wheel of double Gloucester cheese down the near vertical Coppers Hill near Gloucester and southwest England. The first racer to finish behind the fast-rolling cheese gets to keep it. The cheese rolling race has been held in Coopers Hill, about 100 miles west of London, since at least 1826, and the sport of cheese rolling is believed to be much older. Did not know it was a sport, but I kind of enjoy it. The tough and rough and tumble event often comes with safety concerns. Few competitors manage to stay on their feet all the way down the 200-yard hill, and this year several had to be helped, limping from the course. Canadian contestant Delaney Irving, 19, won the women's race despite being briefly knocked unconscious.
Oh no!
Wow. I just remember he hit in my head, and now I have the cheese, said Irving, who comes from Nanaimo, British Columbia. Mark Crolla, 28, from Manchester, Northern England, won the first of several men's races. Asked how he had prepared, he told reporters, "I don't think you can train for it, can you? It's just being an idiot." Your story. Oh, I should say that in a British accent. I don't think you can train for it. It's just being an idiot. I don't know. That's a mild British accent.
Okay.
That's the Weird Wednesday stories.
Indeed, what an oddity. All right. In culture news, we're going to look at what minstrels really did in the medieval times. Ooh. What they were actually doing. This is an article by Sarah Shafi on The Guardian. Mad and offensive. text shed light on the role played by minstrels in medieval society. From mocking kings and priests to encouraging audiences to get drunk, newly discovered texts in the National Library of Scotland have shed light on the role played by minstrels in medieval society, containing the earliest recorded use of the term red herring in English. The texts are part of a booklet known as the Hague manuscript. Dr. James Wade of the University of Cambridge, who discovered them, said echoes of minstrel humor can be found in shows such as Mock the Week, situational comedies, and slapstick. The self-irony and making audience the butt of the joke are still very characteristic of British stand-up comedy, he added. Throughout the Middle Ages, minstrels traveled between fairs, taverns, and baronial halls to entertain people with songs and stories. Although fictional minstrels are common in medieval literature, references to real-life performers are rare, and the Hague manuscript is among the first evidence of the life and work of a real minstrel. Wade, from Cambridge's English faculty in Girton's College, said most of medieval poetry and song storytelling has been lost. Manuscripts often preserve relics of high art, he continued. This is something else. It's mad and offensive, but just as valuable. Stand-up comedy has always involved taking risks, and these texts are risky. They poke fun at everyone, high and low. The text consists of a tale rhyme burlesque romance entitled The Hunting of the Hare, a mock sermon in prose, and an alternative nonsense verse, The Battle of Brackenwet. They are copied circa 1480 by Richard Hague, a household cleric and tutor to the Derbyshire family called the Sherbrookes, from a now lost memory aid written by an unknown minstrel performing near the Derbyshire-Nottinghamshire border. Sorry, I should say Derbyshire-Nottinghamshire. They don't say Shire. Wade believed that minstrel wrote part of his act down because in many nonsense sequences would have been extremely difficult to recall. He didn't give himself the kind of repetition or story trajectory which would have made things simpler to remember, Wade said. Here we have a self-made entertainer with very little education creating really original ironic material. To get an insight into someone like that from this period is incredibly rare and exciting. The Hunting of the Hare is a poem about peasants, full of jokes and absurd hijinks, Wade said. One scene is reminiscent of Monty Python's Killer Rabbit of Caerbannog. What is it called? Caerbannog? The rabbit killer of Monty Python?
He had a name?
Yeah, Killer Rabbit of Caerbannog. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I don't remember how this.
No, the Canberran Cave or something like that.
Yeah.
Cave of Canberran. I think.
The sermon addresses the audience as cursed creatures and includes fragments from drinking songs. This is a minstrel telling his audience, perhaps people of very different social standing, to get drunk and be merry with each other, Wade said. The sermon also contained the first recorded use of the term red herring, where 3 kings eat as so much as 24 oxen burst out of their bellies, sword fighting. The oxen chop each other up until they are reduced to 3 red herrings. The Battle of Brackenwet features Robin Hood as well as jousting bears, battling bumblebees and partying pigs. The poem names several villages close to Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire border, including a skillful demonstration of alternate alliterative verse and a clever double entendre. Wade said, "We shouldn't assume that popular entertainers weren't capable of poetic achievement. This minstrel clearly was." Wade's study is published on Wednesday in the Review of English Studies journal. Okay, so go look at that if you want to actually read the whole study on Wednesday. Oh, it is Wednesday today, so it has been published in the Review of English Studies journal, which you probably can't read unless you're a student and you have access to academic journals, but it's somewhere out there.
You can post a link and see if they can open it.
I always love when historians, or I guess people who aren't historians, are like, "Oh, everyone was stupid back in the day," and I'm like, if you're able to think about something, somebody 20,000 years ago was able to think of it. Our brains have not evolved that much. Yeah. I'd say they devolved, really, but.
Yes, technology made us lazy and stupid. Really,
They can rhyme words together. But they had no education. Yes, even a child can understand how a rhyme works. You don't need to go to freaking university to figure that out.
My favorite is Ancient Aliens, that show. It's like, it's impossible that humans could have done this. Huh? Why? I'm trying to figure out. We had nothing better to do. We didn't fucking sit around and watch TV all day. We didn't sit around and stare at our phones all day. We had shitloads of time. And people were like, hey, let's get 1,000 people together to build a fucking bridge. Man, let's do that. And they would probably do it. And they probably didn't fight about it. Who fucking knows? They probably got along great. Yeah, human development is not advanced, I don't think. You're right. There's no proof that we advanced at all. You know,
we invented some technology that made things easier, but it's not like they're completely new ideas that we never thought of, right? They are physical embodiments of ideas we already had, but we're like, what if we had a thing do it instead of us? And that's about it. So.
Well, we introduced the profit motive. That didn't exist 10,000 years ago. The profit motive. We didn't have merchants going, well, let's raise prices here today. No, there was none of that. So we invented the profit motive, and that's where inventions get driven, because the ones that make us laziest make the most money. And that's the way it's been working. Yep. All right. This day in history, 1790, the United States established copyright law in 1790, May 31st. In 1819, Walt Whitman, the poet, famous poet, everybody knows Walt Whitman. Of course, if you're a United States educated person, you've never even heard of a Civil War. So, I'm just joking about our poor education system, but only slightly. American poet, essayist Walt Whitman leaves the grass and was actually a nurse in Civil War. Was born at this day in 1819 in Long Island, New York. 1889, considered one of the worst natural disasters in American history, the flood that ravaged Johnstown, Pennsylvania, caused more than 2,200 deaths. In 1909, the South African War, the Boer War, came to a close with the signing of the Peace of Vereniging. It's got to be a Belgian word. Vereniging, right? In 1910, coincidentally, Louis Botha formed the first government of the Union of South Africa. So 8 years later, Botha took his place as the first apartheid guy. The Battle of Jutland, an encounter between British and German naval fleets in World War I, began. In 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre began in Oklahoma as mobs of both African Americans and whites descended on the courthouse where a black man who was accused of assaulting a white woman was being held. In the ensuing violence, Tulsa's prosperous black neighborhood of Greenwood was destroyed and killed, and as many as 300 people were killed, mostly African Americans. And this is speaking of poor American education system. If you grew up in America, you did not know about this.
Yeah, I did not.
I had to learn about it in community college in the 1990s. Yeah. Community college in 1999, I had to learn about it. Something that happened in 1921 in the United States that killed 300 people. Meanwhile, stupid shit that killed one person is famous forever.
Yeah.
1943, American gridiron football player Joe Namath was born in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. We're covering too many birthdays in this What's in History. 1977, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which connected oil fields of Prudhoe Bay, northern Alaska, to the harbor in Valdez, was completed. 2005, it was publicly revealed that former FBI official Mark Felt was Deep Throat, the anonymous informant at the center of the Watergate scandal that led to Nixon resigning. In 2009, Milvina Dean, the last known person to have survived the sinking of the Titanic in 1912, died in Southampton, England. She was 9 weeks old at the time of the disaster, but she lived to be 97, so that's a long life. And another thing in this day that happened, Adolf Eichmann, if you ask him what he was doing to this day in 1962, he would say, I'm just hanging around. On this day in 1962, the State of Israel hanged German official Adolf Eichmann, who had escaped from a prison camp in 1946 and spent some 14 years in hiding for his part in the Nazi extermination of Jews. And birthdays today. Clint Eastwood was born on this day in 1930s. Clint Eastwood, happy 92nd birthday.
Wow.
1947, John Bonham, British musician, drummer for Led Zeppelin, was born. 1943, we already covered Joe Namath. Prince Rainier of Monaco was born on this day in 1923. I guess he only made Prince, huh? 1923, Ellsworth Kelly, American painter, sculptor, and printmaker, was born this day. And what day is it today, you ask? I know you're curious. It is World Parrot Day.
Oh, wow. No.
So repeat everything everybody else says all day long just to irritate them.
But in
do
a
it in this
high-pitched voice.
Yeah, like that. I can't use a toilet. I can't use a toilet. Yeah. It's also National Flip-Flop Day.
Hey, I have flip-flop on. I did it.
So when somebody's talking like a parrot, take off your flip-flop and throw it at them.
The chancla.
Don't do that.
That's
violent. We do not condone violence. I am terribly sorry. It's National Autonomous Vehicle Day. I guess it's self-driving?
Yes.
Okay. Wear your flip-flops, get in your self-driving car, repeat everything that everybody says. National Senior Health and Fitness Day. That's every day, man. When you're senior, man, you better just keep going. That's about it. Just keep moving. That's all there is to it. Something's catching you, right?
As soon as you stop moving, you will mummify.
Yeah, and that guy with the hood and the scythe and the frickin', he's got a big cold hand on your shoulder. Keep moving. Keep moving, man.
Ooh.
National Smile Days today.
Spinal?
So, smile.
Oh, smile. Okay, well,
or
we're already
spinal,
doing that.
It could be. National Speak in Complete Sentences Day. So, yeah, I do that as much as possible. Me no talk good. World No Tobacco Day.
My whole life I've been doing that.
Here's another one I can't pronounce. Necrotizing Fasciitis Awareness Day. Necrotizing sounds like you're dead, doesn't it?
Sounds like it's something that causes your flesh to die when you get bit by it. That's what that sounds like.
Yeah, I really want to be aware of that. I'd rather be on board with National Macaroon Day myself.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And National Utah Day is also today, and National Save Your Hearing Day. Did you get that? National Save Your Hearing Day?
Huh?
So
Sorry?
don't have parents!
What did you say?
Probably. Yell really loud!
What did you say? Listen to rock music incredible at 30 freaking decibels or something? Is that what you said?
Hey? Huh? That is it today. That is all the days. There's way too many of them to remember, but I will remember National Macaroon Day, hopefully at the opportune time when I'm near one.
Yeah. All right, this has been Allison here from Europe. Excited to find out what's going to happen next with our refugees and our strategic awakening. Defend our borders against mostly Russia because they're really the only threat here. And I will see you tomorrow for some more news on Thursday.
And Roger actually had no news from the United States today. On Weird Wednesday, May, the last day of May, 2023, May 31st, 2023, on Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.